Now, tensions between the Philippines and China spiked once again this week over the South China Sea.
Convoys are critical to the Philippines, to its security, to its economy, but they're also critical to the interests of the region, the United States, and the world. It's why we stand with the Philippines.
Though it is not in the South China Sea, it is not outright war. What we are worried about are the increasing tensions that are happening.
The potential for outright conflict is much higher now than it was before, and we worry in the Philippines because it could come from not a strategic decision by anyone saying, okay, we're going to war, but just by some serviceman making a mistake. Ferdinand Marcos Jr., President of the Philippines. Caught in the jaws of geopolitical tension, the South China Sea becomes a battleground at dawn. In a heart-stopping encounter, a lone Philippine convoy, charged with a critical mission, faces off against a formidable Chinese fleet. Surrounded and outnumbered, they fight for survival as chaos reigns upon the high seas. With tensions soaring, witness the courage and sacrifice of sailors facing overwhelming odds in the fight for sovereignty. Recent tensions between the Philippines and China have once again ignited concerns over the volatile situation in the South China Sea. Manila's release of footage depicting China's Coast Guard firing water cannons at Philippine vessels has escalated the dispute. This incident led to Manila summoning Beijing's deputy ambassador, raising questions about the Philippines' strategy in dealing with the Chinese aggression in the contested waters. According to Jay Terriella, spokesperson for the Philippine Coast Guard, a Chinese Coast Guard vessel engaged in what was described as dangerous maneuvers, obstructing the passage of the BRP Sindangan, a Philippine Coast Guard ship escorting a resupply mission to 2nd Thomas Shoal. These shoal houses the BRP Sierra Madre, a grounded warship. In a subsequent confrontation, 2 Chinese Coast Guard vessels reportedly targeted a Philippine supply boat with water cannons, resulting in injuries to 4 individuals, as reported by a Philippine government task force. Manila condemned these actions as both illegal and reckless. These incidents mark the latest escalation in maritime tensions as both nations assert sovereignty claims in the South China Sea, particularly around the 2nd Thomas Shoal.
Now, an international court in The Hague has sided with the Philippines, overruling Beijing's claims in the South China Sea.
Despite an international court ruling in 2016 rejecting China's claims, the dispute persists. How will the Philippines navigate this delicate situation amid escalating aggression from China? China's Coast Guard fleet, now the world's largest, is escalating tensions by aggressively patrolling near Taiwan's Kinmen territory, which Beijing claims as its own. This has raised concerns of a political conflict involving the United States, Taiwan's key ally and arms supplier, and the Philippines, which has a mutual defense treaty with Washington. Despite Beijing's accusations of U.S. interference, Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. asserts that his country's actions are driven solely by its interests. He emphasizes the need to protect the rights and interests of smaller Asian states, rejecting the notion of being manipulated by major powers. While Manila expresses willingness to cooperate with Beijing on South China Sea disputes, it vows to defend its sovereignty and maritime rights. Despite refraining from invoking the Mutual Defense Treaty, the increasing frequency of maritime confrontations poses challenges for both sides in finding a balance in these contested waters. The Philippines' Department of Foreign Affairs, or DFA, disclosed on Tuesday that it had received various maritime-related proposals from China, but found them incompatible with the nation's interests. These proposals, including one concerning the Ayungin Shoal, were deemed unacceptable as they implied acknowledgement of China's control over the area, contradicting Philippine constitutional and international legal principles. The DFA emphasized its commitment to sincere and good faith negotiations, expressing surprise at China's public disclosure of confidential discussions. China's proposals, reportedly numbering 11, aimed at managing disputes over areas like the Second Thomas Shoal and fishing concerns around Scarborough Shoal. However, the DFA noted that China's counterproposals failed to align with Philippine interests, particularly concerning the South China Sea. Additionally, the DFA clarified that the Philippines did not disregard China's proposals, but instead offered counterproposals, prompting further discussion. The DFA's response came after a Manila Times report quoted an anonymous ranking Chinese official expressing frustration over perceived inaction by the Philippine government regarding China's proposals. The latest tensions arose from an incident where water cannons were deployed by China, alleging illegal intrusion by Philippine vessels, prompting defensive measures. In light of these developments, the DFA's statement underscores the complexity of ongoing negotiations between the Philippines and China concerning maritime disputes. Despite efforts to engage diplomatically, significant differences persist regarding the interpretation of territorial claims and the management of resources in the South China Sea. Next week, Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is scheduled to meet with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken to discuss cooperation and security matters, particularly focusing on the South China Sea tensions. Marcos's office stated that the meeting aims to strengthen defense and economic ties with the U.S., the Philippines, and Japan, all of which share concerns about China's expansive maritime claims. The discussions are expected to address the increasing frequency and severity of Chinese incursions into areas claimed by the Philippines in the South China Sea. Recent confrontations, such as the ramming of a Philippine Coast Guard vessel by the China Coast Guard, CCG, have escalated tensions. This incident, near the Second Thomas Shoal, resulted in the CCG firing water cannons at a Philippine supply vessel, causing injuries to 4 Navy personnel and damaging the vessel's windshield. Such encounters underscore the volatile situation in the region. Experts suggest that China employs gray zone strategies around Second Thomas Shoal, engaging in actions just below the threshold of warfare but still achieving its objective in gaining territory or control without direct military conflict. Over the past months, the Chinese government has intensified its coercive gray zone tactics to disrupt Philippine civilian resupply missions for troops stationed aboard the BRP Sierra Madre at Second Thomas Shoal in the South China Sea. In 1999, Manila intentionally grounded the World War II-era ship on the disputed shoal to establish a permanent military presence and assert Philippine sovereignty. Since then, Philippine resupply missions have consistently faced harassment from Chinese forces. As tensions escalate in the South China Sea, the delicate balance of power hangs in the balance. The recent confrontations between the Philippines and China underscore the urgency for diplomatic resolution amidst the looming threat of conflict. As President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. prepares to engage in discussions with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, hopes for strengthened alliances and security measures are high. However, the question remains, can diplomatic efforts mitigate the escalating aggression and safeguard national stability? Or are we inching closer to a full-blown conflict in the South China Sea? Meanwhile, show some love by hitting the like button and subscribing for more compelling content. Your support keeps us going.